EI over everything, emotional intelligence over everything. I am Dawn Morris, and I am excited to have this program. The World Class Training Institute is an organization that maximizes human capital through the delivery of professional and leadership development training workshops. I've always loved training. I've been blessed with the opportunity to do it for so many years. You want to be a pinnacle leader. Becoming more emotionally intelligent is going to set you on the road to that. I have to meet people where they are and not try to say just because I'm doing it, they automatically can do it. The area that emotional intelligence helps with is called your blind spot. It helps you to strengthen your self-awareness.
I just found the session really helpful. It was my favorite session of the conference.
My name is Derek Potter, and I am the Director of Business Operations for Group Effort of Tennessee. I'm here to talk about the world-class training, leadership training provided by Don to my staff. The training has been extremely helpful for our group of folks, mainly because a lot of principles used in traditional business are oftentimes lacking when it comes to social service because the focus is about the people. We don't think about the people that lead those people, lead departments and positions in which manage the day-to-day operations. And so for us to have an opportunity to train with Don in this training and get the particular skill sets needed to become better leaders, motivators, supervisors, and even teammates was inspirational for us, and we enjoyed the training.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Leaders Lounge. I am, of course, Dawn Morris, and this is Leader Shift inside the Leaders Lounge. This is our last Leader Shift, and I'm very excited about the guest that we have coming to us today. We are going to get to her momentarily. I just want to, of course, review with you all a few of the concepts that are a part of this Leader Shift series. And encourage you at any time, if you want to go and enroll in the program, you may do that. I'm going to just share the banner right now so that you all can see. It's worldclasstraining.net/leadershift. So LeaderShift is specifically designed for new leaders and seasoned leaders who are new to the organization, because based on the 5 levels of leadership under John Maxwell, it is important that leaders as quickly as possible bring their team members together and help not only build relationships, but develop them. So the 4 components of LeaderShift are: first, embracing change and charting a new vision, because of course, you either being a new leader or a leader new to the organization, you are bringing change to that team. And then you also need to establish a vision with your team members. The second piece of that is what we call who you with, which is about understanding the personality attributes of your team members. So through either DISC or emotional intelligence, we help you and your team members to know each other better, and also to be able to develop behavioral tendencies that help to drive your vision and your activities forward in a positive way. The next piece is systems thinking, where we deal with this idea that as an organization, we have to understand that we're connected and we all need to operate in a systems thinking format in order for the whole to be greater than the sum of its parts. And finally, courage in conflict. And as leaders, sometimes we don't want to engage our team members in situations that are uncomfortable. Understanding, however, that in order to be a great leader, we must know that conflict is a part of leadership, and how we handle conflict is a key driver for how we reach that pinnacle level. So through those components, we help you along with your team to work together and leave out with a solid foundation for how you are going to drive your organization forward. So it's either a day and a half or it is 3 half days, depending on what's most comfortable for you. And of course, you can reach out to me and we can talk more about that. So that's that piece. Now, In terms of the 5 levels of leadership, I do want to share those with you all right quickly, because that's going to be part of the framework of what we're going to talk about today. So the 5 levels of leadership are position, which is by title; permission, which is about relationship; productivity, which is about results; people development, which is, of course, helping people to be better; and then pinnacle, which is the respect level of leadership. And these are based on John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, which is a key framework for how LeaderShift is derived. With all of that said, I have, to wrap up this series, a great leader, and she is out of the Bahamas. She is a human resource and leadership development expert in her own right. She is also a minister, and she is from the Bahamas. Dr. Tavara Johnson, it's so great to have you. How are you today?
I am wonderful. It's so great to be here. I'm super excited. You know, I love all things leadership, so I cannot wait to get into this conversation.
Yes, I know you do. That's why when I first was putting this together, audience, you don't know this, but I saw that Dr. Tavara was having a session on how to increase your sphere of influence. And I reached out to her almost immediately and asked her to be a part of this conversation, because and we've met through Facebook and now in person just once, but I've always respected you as a leader, as someone who just delivers such great information, and I appreciate you being able to take the time today to share with this audience all that you know about leadership. And she is a certified, let me just also say that she is a certified John Maxwell trainer, as well as she has certification in DISC. So she is just a phenomenal leader and leadership expert. So thank you for being here again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. Before we get into a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, I just want you to share, how did you get engaged in this leadership development world that we live in? What excited you about it, and how did you become a leadership development expert?
Well, to be honest, just being able to see the gaps in leadership caused me to want to get into leadership and want to be at a place where I'm able to equip other leaders, train other leaders, coach them as well, because, you know, sometimes they have personal issues that are actually affecting how they lead and manage people. And so for me, that's why, you know, seeing the gaps, and of course me having some negative as well as positive experiences dealing with other leaders, and really gave me that drive to really want to leadership, you know. Okay. Because I don't feel like leadership is not going anywhere. It's needed, and I believe that, you know, sometimes some leaders, they get to the space where they feel like, you know, I've been doing something for so long, and they don't necessarily feel that they should even be leveling up their skills or equipping themselves. So for me, I look at it as, I mean, of course, I would deal with persons who've been in leadership for a while, but sometimes I try to get to the emerging leaders or the new leaders or the new managers and supervisors, simply because I see it almost like a baby. You know, the best time to get a baby or a person is really in their infant stages. So I see, when we talk about leadership, that's why one of the reasons why I like to target them, because I want them to be great leaders, and I don't want them to fall into that category of compromising themselves or really just being a bad leader.
That is so true. And what you said about seasoned leaders, or leaders who have been tenured and doing it for a while, some of them may think, hey, I've heard it all before, I've done this. And I run into that as well. Leaders who've been not necessarily in the same position, but, you know, I've been a leader for 20 years. So I've done, you know, DISC, I've done emotional intelligence. I've seen all of this before. What's the answer to them to stay engaged in this leadership learning process? Because I've been in leadership development training, I want to say maybe 10, 15 years now as well, but I still get excited about any tidbits that I can find that help strengthen me. So what is your kind of formula for helping leaders who say, you know what, I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the shoes. I don't want to hear anything else about it. But knowing that, hey, you know what, you probably still can either sharpen your saw by learning something different, or you can sharpen it by just maybe hearing the same information, but using it differently depending on the circumstance.
Yeah. So I think, to be honest, the way how and I guess I kind of touch the emotional side or the heart. So that's one of the things I love to do when we talk about training. And so as it relates to the seasoned leaders, or the ones who feel like, hey, I've been in leadership for so long, my question to them is, what is your legacy like as a leader? Have you developed other leaders? Have the person who you've been managing, what are they doing? Do you have a successor? So for me personally, you could have been in a leadership capacity for 20 or 30 years, but if you don't have a successor, if your leadership is in one where you've been training and equipping other people to go ahead and train and equip other people, for me, you're still in the infancy stages.
And that's so true. That's so true, because I was reading too recently where they said that a lot of people, when you're looking at those 5 levels, they stop at productivity and they think, well, you know what, we're getting results, so I'm a great leader. But you're right. If you're not reproducing other leaders, or you're not developing them in a way that helps to make them successful in whatever realm they want to be in, then yeah, you're really not, you're at a seat, because you're right there in the middle. So yes,
that's for me how I gauge it, and the questions that I like to ask them. But that's the question that I ask for all, whether you're a seasoned or a new leader. But especially like you asked about the seasoned leaders, but my thing is, that's what I ask them, like, where's the fruit? In today's society, they like to say receipts. So where is the receipt?
Right.
Where is it? I want to know.
Right. That's true. Are they saying that in the Bahamas too? Because I haven't heard that. Show me the receipts. That is so true.
Yeah. So that's how I gauge it.
Yes. I think that's a very good point. Very great point. Well, audience, before we get into the content around increasing your sphere of influence, I wanted to have a little fun with Dr. Tavara today, because she's from the Bahamas, and we're going to talk about a couple of things related to leadership, but we're going to talk about who does it better, the Bahamas or the United States. So I'm going to put this up here, and then we'll just run through a couple of these real fun. You guys determine for yourselves what the real answer is. We're not going to have that, we're not going to be able to determine that exactly, but we'll talk about a few things related to how we do each of those. So the first one, who does it better? Related to employee engagement. And this is really talking about when somebody is new to an organization, onboarding. What are some of the activities that you guys do, or have you seen that either work well or not so well, related to engaging a new employee?
So one of the things that's normally good is, as it relates to taking them around to all of the different managers, at least who so they can know who they are, especially if it's an environment where we have several locations. Because sometimes I've worked in an organization before where there were 3 different locations, and sometimes you would not see other employees. You just wouldn't see them at all, unless you really had to really deal with them. And so one of the things they do, sometimes it's all day. And so they do, give them give them a tour around the sites.
Okay.
So they can know where everyone is at, introduce them. And of course, like I said, let them meet everyone. And of course, sometimes they do a lunch, so they can get kind of acclimated within the department, because, sometimes whenever you do something that's off site, everyone is able to kind of relax a little bit, let their hair down a little bit, because the office does, create that tense. It can create that tense moment.
Right.
So sometimes, you have to take people out of their regular environment to kind of go ahead and, to kind of go ahead and drop the walls just a little bit.
Yes. That's good. Now that's similar to what we do. We have lunches where we take our team members out. Typically there will be a little mini tour, although as an employee, it was always kind of, I'm might meet certain people, but of course it takes a couple of months before you really find your way and know what's going on. But I think that is a good way to at least let the people in the organization know, hey, there's somebody new, here. One thing too that I'll say at one organization they did that I thought was great for employee engagement was they gave a little basket to new employees with some of the little trinkets from the organization. So, and with the welcome card. So I always thought that was great for, getting people involved and making sure that they understood. And now, do you guys do this? My last organization, they even had an orientation day where they would play a video and always share how the company got started so that everybody kind of felt like they were part of this family that had been built over, I think it had been around like 30, maybe 50 years by the time I was there, however many years, but they would show this video so everybody would know, like, this is how we got started, and then a little video from the CEO, all of that stuff. Do you guys do anything like that?
So sometimes they may or may not do a video, but if they don't, whenever you do have orientation, they would give you the back history. That would be on the slides.
Yes. Okay.
At least letting you know all of the history,
right,
as it pertains to the company.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes they would give you a what is it called? I would call it almost like your handbook for the department.
Oh yes, right.
Yeah. So you can know exactly everything that you need to know as it pertains to your duties, your responsibilities, as well as any calendar events as well. So just different things. And then sometimes they would do a blast email to let persons know that, hey, Donna's new, she's starting with us, just with a few, just with a few lines to say, like, things that you like or what you like to do, like your interest, just a very small write up on them.
Right. Yes. I've seen those too. Okay, good. So that's kind of similar. We're all right. Next one. Who does it better? Performance management. So do you guys have a definitive, and it may be organizationally, I don't know, some, as I'm thinking about when I was in corporate America, it would depend, but there were some things that were pretty standard no matter what organization. So when you're talking about the process of managing performance, going from, I'll just give you an example. We may have a verbal, then you'll have a written, maybe a second written, those types of things before you might terminate somebody, and then, or you may have a performance improvement plan. Is that similar to how you guys do it there?
Yeah. So they do have the different levels of, I guess, disciplinarian.
Okay.
Yeah, they would discipline you, as well as sometimes they call it corrective action.
Okay.
Personal development plans. They have different names, but in essence, is really putting you on some sort of program or schedule to improve your behavior. Yeah,
exactly. We would always say, if you can't change the people, change the people. So if you can't, one way or another, if you can't be better, we got to get a different person. So, okay, good. Third one, preparing leaders before they get the job. So at some of my organizations, if you didn't have the title, a leadership title, supervisor, manager, etc., you couldn't go through a management training. And I'm not sure if that was an HR thing because they didn't want people to think they had a position that they didn't have, or what. You could be on what they call a bench. They would say, we're building our bench, but they wouldn't prepare leaders in many of the organizations where I worked prior to, and when I say prepare them in terms of giving them leadership training until they had the title of leadership. How do you guys do it?
It's kind of, I will say this. I believe that they could do a better job of, acclimating persons to the role even prior to. So what I believe that should happen, and this is just me, what I believe should happen is if you have persons, like you would say, on the bench, I believe that there should be some sort of program for them. So whenever the position comes up, they're able to really perform their duties in the role. So, but I find that sometimes that's a step that a lot of companies miss. And so that's why you have people who are, when they do enter the role, they don't really know what true leadership really is.
Right.
And sometimes they make a mess of the whole thing. But so it's almost like you need to be proactive about it versus being reactive about it. And so I would say that that's something that they definitely could
Yes,
enhance.
no, I'm sorry. And you know what? It's fading a little bit. That's me and this. I'm gonna leave this alone, but it's going in and out, and it's like an air thing. But at any rate, we're here. And I agree with you. We need to do a better job with that as well. There has to be, because understanding when you go from, especially we're talking about promoted from within now, an individual contributor to a leader of people, the asks are totally different. And even though I always use the example, and I'll just pick up this mascara right here. So it's like, hey, I've been working and I've been able to pump out 100 of these a day. And so because I've been able to do that so well, now I'm promoted. And now I have to help this team of people pump out 100 mascaras a day. Well, I have the skills from a tactical standpoint to do this because I know how to put these together. But when we're talking about leading and motivating others, the human skill piece has to be engaged. And before someone becomes a leader, we have to know that they're able to do that in a good way, not just put these together individually. And then that to me also is why there's some challenges with delegation, because when people go into becoming a leader, they're not used to, of course, delegating, and then they don't trust the other people because they're like, I've seen them work and I know, I can do it a certain way. But you have to engage them in order to help them to be able to produce at the same level.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that was what I thought was great too when you talk about promoting from within. One of the challenges a lot of people have is that how do I go from being the friend, being the individual who we went out with,
Yes.
probably we're over at one another's houses or whatever it may be, and now you have to manage these individuals. Like, how do you effectively manage that and at the same time still garner the level of respect as well as influence to be able to effectively lead in that role? And so I find that that's a big issue for a lot of people whenever they are promoted from within.
Yes, that is so true. That separation, like, I'm no longer your friend. I am, well, we can be, I always would say we can be friendly, but we have to be careful who we call our friend. And when we're a leader, that is multiplied, because you would be surprised. You would be surprised how that shift happens when that transition goes from you now being their peer to now being their teammate. Being their leader. I'm sorry. So yes, there is definitely a mindset shift and an operation shift from how a modus operandi, I should say, shift when you become a leader.
But it's actually twofold. So you have the being able to promote from, you're promoting from within, from the line staff to now supervisor, manager. So that's one thing that they deal with. And then here goes another thing, whereas you wasn't prepared with the necessary tools or leadership skills to be able to function the role. So there are really two things that they're dealing with.
Yes.
Especially persons who've never had a managerial role before.
Yes, that's so true. So true. And last one. So after someone has become a leader, the continuous training to keep their skills sharp. Do you see in organizations there that there's a plan in place to provide continuous training to seasoned leaders or not?
So, I believe people sometimes they have training budgets and they say, okay, well, maybe you could go off to a course or something, but to say that continuous training, I would say no. And I believe when you talk about seasoned leaders, I think it has to shift into coaching or mentorship, like them being coached or mentored, because that takes it to another level. So yes, you have to, upgrade your skill set. But when you talk about being coached, not even mentor, but really being coached, because it's the difference between coaching and mentoring.
Yes.
But you being coached by someone else, like that's totally different, because they will really challenge you from on another level. So I believe that the courses go hand in hand for seasoned leaders, but ultimately, I believe they need coaching.
Yes. And that's a great point. Great point. I will say at the last company where I was, they had for next level leaders a combination of training and coaches. It was group coaching, but it did allow the leaders an opportunity to have those more in-depth discussions about particular challenges that they were having related to leadership. And you're absolutely right, because they may not need the tactical pieces. They may need that more in-depth, this particular area I'm struggling with, or this particular person I'm struggling with, and a coach can help to help a leader to work through that.
Yeah, because I think after a while, some of it is really personal issues that people may be dealing
Yes.
or facing.
Right.
Some could be balancing, home life and work life, as well as some could be, one of the things I say sometimes, people, if as a leader, you don't work on the necessary healing that's required in terms of, okay, you suffered rejection, so now you decide to reject everyone else, and so you're really dealing with trauma. And I say this all the time: if you don't deal with that trauma, you begin to lead from a place of trauma.
Oh, that's good. That's
And
good.
leading from a place of trauma, you've now substituted that for your personal values.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's good.
So, yes,
That's good. Leading
yeah,
from a place of trauma, you've substituted.
hmm
Okay, how does that work for your values? So you're now,
because you if you're leading from a place of trauma, so now, especially if you haven't, like I said, got the necessary healing or done the necessary work,
yes,
you've dealt with and rejection is one of those things that, I mean, everyone deals with, but not everyone know how to really manage that thing where it doesn't bother them. So if you were someone who were rejected,
yeah,
whether it be on the job, whether it be in your home, then you get to a place where you start treating everyone else like that. Sometimes you would find yourself rejecting great things or rejecting people, places, or things that you shouldn't even be rejecting, but because you haven't dealt with that trauma,
yes.
that's why I said you replace that now
Oh,
to your personal value. And
yeah,
because that's how, because you're not leading from a healed place. And so all leaders, whether you're in marketplace or ministry, healing needs to be done. We have some persons have wronged them, and then what they do. I don't know if you guys say it over there, but I know here we talk about beating someone with the same stick. So here it is now. Someone have wronged you, and instead of you deal with that, now you begin now to almost take that out like some sort of vendetta on individuals. So now this has now become, you've replaced that now with your personal value, because that's how you're leading. People lead from their personal values.
yes, yes, and that's so true. Oh my goodness, you just hit something. And we're not going to stay in this place, but when you said that, just quickly, I talked to someone maybe several weeks ago about, I'm going to just go there, with police brutality and how sometimes policemen, I said, that's their Superman suit. And so when they see certain people, um, they're thinking about, I didn't make the basketball team, football team, not because of that person, but somebody who looked like that person
Mm-hmm.
got the spot that I wanted. And so now I'm in this power, positional place of power,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm using this Superman suit, i.e., a police uniform, with my trauma to lead the community.
Yep.
And therein lies the problem. There hasn't been a healing from within. And so, as you said, now your values show up from a traumatic place.
Yes.
Wow.
Unfortunately, a lot of leaders, like I say, whether in marketplace or ministry, you see
Yes.
it. You
Yes.
see it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. That's so true. Oh my goodness. I didn't know we were going there, but very good. Very good. So let's move on. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like, though, I'm glad we did that, because it sounds like we kind of operate similarly, even though we're in different places. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it's good to know that I guess Everybody's okay? So I don't know. We'll see. We'll move right along. Let's now talk about this thing called increasing your sphere of leadership influence. What does that mean to you when you say increasing your sphere of influence as a leader?
Well, when we talk about increasing your influence or your sphere of influence, no, it's really expansion. And it's really, when you get to that place, when you talk about you mentioned the 5 levels, when you get beyond the position in terms of people, following you just because you have a title. One of the things I always say, if you are taken from out of your environment that you are most comfortable in as a leader, if you're taken from out of that environment, will people still follow you outside of that environment? If the answer is no, then I kind of question your leadership skill set.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how I look at it. And then also I just look at, you always have to find ways to, and of course, make sure yourself being genuine, but you have to always find ways to increase your influence because you literally can increase your influence. And I tell people one of the ways you do that is by the way you empower people. People are more drawn to individuals who are going to empower them.
Yes.
If you are going to always, be a negative Nancy, like they say, or be a petty Patty, people aren't going to really be interested in, being under your leadership or sitting under your leadership. I don't know if you've seen the saying where they say people leave. They don't leave. What is it? They leave people.
They don't leave organizations. They leave people.
Right. They leave people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it, it's really the truth.
Yes, it is. That's very true.
Because you could have a really great organization, and if people aren't functioning at their capacity where they need to be functioning at, people are going to be, there's going to be low productivity in the department. People are going to be extremely miserable. They're going to be absent from work a lot. It's just, just a whole lot of chaos, tension. And so all of those things we really have to be mindful of. And so I tell people all the time, empower others. If you really want to be, to increase your influence, learn how to empower others.
As a new leader, how do you help them with that empowerment mindset? Because again, I'm the person who I was putting together these pieces of mascara, and now you're asking me to empower this team of people who I don't trust yet because I haven't seen them work to get this done. So what are some tactical and practical pieces that they can use to empower others?
So one of the things, first you have to work on your mindset. That's number one. Some people, they have great leadership skills, but their mindset is just not there. In terms of getting past, this, what do they call it now? Almost like this being like this counterfeit or trying to be like the people pleasing. So there's a lot of things that you have to get past when you talk about, in being able to encourage those individuals. And then also, I believe having one-on-one meetings with your staff, because the best way to know your staff is to have one-on-one meetings with them. I know sometimes they do have performance appraisals, sometimes those are done. But I tell people you don't wait until it's close to the time to now have certain conversations with your employees.
Exactly.
So have the one-on-one, and you really have to work on building a foundation.
Yes.
Like I said, the one-on-one helps, having the open door policy, be open to their ideas, let them, share. I mean, I've seen managers, they ask you for your for your idea and they get upset when you say it,
Yes.
So you have to be you have to be
like you asked. So.
Yeah, you have to be open. Don't clip their wings.
Yes.
Give them the autonomy that they need. Don't say that you're giving someone autonomy, but every couple of minutes you're, oh, so Dawn, did you do it yet? How's it going? Did you do it yet?
Right.
No. But if you have one-on-one with your employees, if you build a relationship, you would know how everyone works. do not get into the habit of the one size fit all cap.
Yeah, that's true.
You have some employees who may listen, you give them an assignment, they're ready to run with it. Then you have some you have to really coach along, and you may have to do a little micromanaging, but
Right.
don't get into the habit of grouping everyone in that one size fit all, because that really irritates a lot of people.
It does, and you're so right. Not only from a behavioral or attitude standpoint, but from a work process. Everybody doesn't work the same way, and just because I may take a different route doesn't mean that we're not still going to land at the same location. So it is always important. And the route that I take might be something that you haven't considered that perhaps is going to help make the whole thing run better. So it is always important to listen.
And so you have to be open. You really have to be open to them. If your employees see that you're, and of course this is for whether it's seasoned, but even the new managers.
Yes.
If people feel as though that you're closed off, you're not being open, you're not being transparent either. Transparency is key. I'm not saying that everything you're able to share, I get it.
Right.
But for example, let's say that, I don't know, the employees may want a raise and there are budget constraints. Be honest and say, listen, at this time, we really can't do it. There are certain things that the organization is dealing with. Just be upfront. Don't go and say, okay, yeah, well, when we get in the meeting, I'll talk to Dawn. And then, the meeting comes and goes several times and you keep giving an excuse. That is one of the ways that you would actually reduce or decrease your influence, not being transparent.
That's very true. That's true. In fact, you said so many great things, but I'm going to dial back just a little bit, because one thing that you hit on that I think is very paramount to empowering is that relationship. So that one-on-one, and I'm even going to go back to my last leader. I always brag on him because the one thing that he did every morning was come and just say hello. So the one-on-one doesn't have to be scheduled. The one-on-one can just be a, hey, how are you doing? Because the more you're talking to me and I'm talking to you about just life, then that's how trust ends up being built. People don't necessarily empower people who they don't know. And it doesn't have to be, like you said, you don't have to be totally telling, what did they say? Oversharing. You don't have to overshare and tell your whole life story. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying that as leaders, as you're getting to know a new team, understanding how they work, just saying hello to them, understanding how their moods are in the morning versus the afternoon, all of those types of things can play into not only how you're communicating with them, but when you're assigning projects, the level of detail that you have to engage in as they are carrying out the project, because you know them. So, and I always say, even if you know them, you still don't ever just leave them totally to themselves, because you're still held accountable. But it allows you to situationally lead whatever the project is, and in turn, and also the person.
Yes, and that's really key. Relationships are paramount, and relationship building is key when you talk about leading people.
Right.
Because I tell people all the time, if you don't work on relationship building, then you're going to have to pay to play.
Exactly. Right. That's so true.
Yeah.
Very true. So true. Now, one thing we talked a little bit about, you said how you can decrease your sphere of influence. I think you talked a little bit about that. I want to just delve into that a little bit more as well, because yes, you can, just like you can build up your influential sphere, it can be eroded by certain behaviors as well. So what are some other behaviors that you find tend to erode someone's sphere of influence?
Well, not being integral. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yes.
Also, I encourage persons not to get in the habit of, let's just say, for example, a survey needs to be done.
Right.
You ask employees to go ahead and complete this survey online. They go ahead and they complete it, but no action is taken after the fact. Listen, if you're not going to take action, don't ask people, especially when you talk about surveys or anything that like their input, if you really know that you don't want to do it.
Right.
Don't get into the habit of checking off the box. I've seen some managers, they talk a good talk, but we know it's just talk, and in their heart of hearts, it's not there. And so if you're doing things just to say that, you've checked off the box, but it's not really with being genuine about it, that is going to cause some issues. Also, all of this office politics, like you got to stay out of that stuff, and getting into the habit of, and I get it. Some people they like to get the tea, so to speak, but that causes issues, and then also not being able to stand up for your employees. That's a problem.
Very.
That will definitely, but not just the reduce the influence, but it actually reduces or causes a loss of trust as well.
Yes.
Don't get in the habit of pitting people against one another. If someone comes to you with something, say, listen, how about let's have a meeting about it? And I can guarantee you, if someone is not being honest, they won't want to show up to that meeting, or they're going to tell the truth. So you have to get in the habit of bringing parties together, especially when, you're trying to figure out exactly, what's happening, so you can know, like I said, who's being truthful, who's not being truthful. And then also if you, just kind of be empathetic. Like if you're not someone who's empathetic, then, again, but you spoke about being able to just say hi. It doesn't have to be like a formal sit down. It could be just something small. And again, if you are doing relationship building, if something is going on with your employee or your team member, they should be able to tell you. If your employees aren't being honest with you, or if they feel like they have to withhold certain information from you, even if it's their personal life, I'm not saying that you keep everything. I'm not saying that you tell everything, but just certain things that probably maybe, couldn't know, like maybe, someone died or just something of that nature. And if certain things they're keeping from you and they're not saying, and they're waiting for someone else to tell you, or you got to hear it on the news or whatever it may be, that speaks volume.
Yes, that's so true. We have to remember the human side as leaders in everything. And just like you said, trust is built. As you said, if you're not integral in your operations, trust is eroded. And on your side, as a leader, your team is not going to trust what you say. And they're not going to, they may still do what you ask, but the relationship becomes compromised, and you don't want that as a leader. As a team member, I am also of the thought that, yes, you may not be able to tell me everything, but even if you can't, just say, hey, you know what, some things are going on, I may not be able to share. But yes, there are some things that are happening, just maybe on a very, maybe a shallow level, but tell them if they come to you and ask you a question, and something is coming, but you may not be able to share. Don't just say, oh, there's nothing, and you absolutely know that something is going on, Does that make sense? I think that makes sense.
Yeah. But all of that has to do with relationship.
Yes.
With relationship building. I remember one of the companies that I work with, the manager, he wanted to, let go one of his employees. And I remember my boss at the time, he said, did you find out what's going on with him? Because he was showing, he was out of character. And that's another thing. If you know your employees and certain things begin to happen, or they start to exhibit certain behaviors, that should tell you right away that something is wrong. But if you don't know your employee, it's going to be difficult for you to even know that they're even going through something, even without them saying something.
Yes, that's so true.
He was going through a whole lot of stuff. And the gentleman, like this manager, wanted to fire him. I remember my boss at the time, he said, did you find out what's going on? He said, find out what's going on with him first before you go, before you take that approach. And when he found out found what was going on, his whole life, this guy's whole entire life was just being turned upside down.
See,
but it affected his work life, but he didn't say anything. He didn't, only when it really got bad was when he really said, but which I guess the manager probably said, listen, what's going on? We may have to let you go or something like that. Guessing that's what the conversation was like. But then only then was when he found out exactly what had happened.
This is what's going on.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
so you have to be again, and all of this is building trust. All of this is knowing when, not just building trust, but just building a relationship. And
Right.
so, like I said, if you know that your employee is acting out of character, then you know something is wrong. If you know them very well,
Exactly. That's true.
or,
Yeah.
yeah, or at least well enough on the job. So if I know that Dawn is very confidential, no one could come to me and say, well, I mean, they could come and they could say it, but I would say, no, that's not the Dawn's character.
Right. Mhm.
But I would say, okay, well, let me still speak. Like I can still speak with her, but I mean, you should still know. There are
Right.
certain things that you should just know about your employee. Yeah.
Exactly. That's very true. That's very true. And it all comes from building that relationship. You got to have that. You really,
Yeah.
there's no real substitute for that.
There's no way around it.
No, there's not. There's not. Which that leads me into our last question very nicely, which is the role of emotional intelligence in leadership influence. And I'm sure you're familiar with emotional intelligence and how Daniel Goleman, who's the, I guess, chief architect of emotional intelligence, says that, and I'm paraphrasing, IQ can get you in the door, right? Your intellect, your resume, all of that can get you in the door. But EQ, your emotional quotient, is what can keep you there, because the better you're able to display empathy and
Mhm.
the better aware you are of yourself and
Yes.
the better you're able to regulate yourself, etc., the more successful you can be. So I'm just tapping a little bit into it. But you tell me the role of emotional intelligence in increasing your sphere of leadership influence. How important is it, do you think? And what are some things that that leaders can do as they are developing their emotional intelligence so that they can maximize their spheres of influence?
Well, emotional intelligence, like you mentioned, the EQ will, the IQ will get you there, when EQ is what's going to keep you. And like I briefly talk about the relationship building. It's the same thing. So relationships is one of those components, and
Yes.
so it's really key. And then of course the self awareness. This goes back to when I mentioned about the trauma. That people leading from the trauma.
Yes.
So how self aware are you? And this is why I said, leaders. And to be honest, to me, every leader needs a leader. To me, every leader should be coached. If you ask me,
No, that's very true. Yes.
yeah, because they help you with that self awareness, and they can also help you with those blind spots. Because I mean, we all have them.
Yes.
We all have the blind spots, but some
Mhm.
people feel as though that no, that's not a problem. Because I've literally seen leaders who I know are doing a terrible job, really felt that they were doing a good job, and I'm like, these people, like, can they not see? But I realize,
Exactly. Yes.
but I'm realizing that it's a blind spot that they have. There's
Right.
this entire having this overconfidence. There's nothing wrong with with being confident, but
Right.
this overconfidence. And I think sometimes some people do that to try to compensate for their lack of leadership skills.
Yep. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. That's very true.
So I
And they
believe
may not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no. So I believe it's extremely important, especially when you talk about leadership.
Yes, I agree as well. And I've often shared that when I was certified in EI, it was kind of life changing for me, because when I had to get my own EQ score, and my social regulation was very high, but my social awareness was not as high. And I said, why is there that difference? And so social awareness speaks to empathy. So when you say, and I even saw somebody on LinkedIn talking about, hey, this leader goes in and his disposition is off-putting to others, and he doesn't realize that it's happening. And so when we're talking about social awareness, that's the piece that we're dealing with. When you are
Mm-hmm.
working with others, or I said, oh, okay, so people, yeah, everybody doesn't want to work out. So you have to understand this. So it's just like, but it got me a little more in touch with that, just understanding, yes, I may be able to regulate folks and people may come along with me, but I have to also be a better reader of body language and the things that are not being said, so that I can then perhaps reshape and redefine how I'm behaving and communicating with others. So it was life-changing for me because it got me, because that was a blind spot for me. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking everybody's coming along because they want to come along, but some people are just coming along because of positional power, right?
Yes.
And they may not want to come along. So yeah, so it really got me to start asking the extra question, because people may not say exactly how they're feeling, but if I read something in their eyes now, I may ask another question. Or if I'm reading something in, you may say you're coming along, but there are certain behaviors that are indicating to me that you're not on board, then I will go in a little deeper. So to me, it's hugely important. EI and emotional intelligence is something that as leaders and as people, we just have to continually work on and develop, because it's all about relationships. All of those components are about how well you're able to build relationships.
Well, one of the things I normally do, I do an assessment, I guess, or more or less every so often, maybe quarterly. I would ask those who know me, okay, is there anything that you think that I may need to change? Is there something that you think that I may need to work on? And so, this also helps, with the EI as well. For as an individual, one of the things that was at least I'm aware of it now. So I'm like, okay.
Yes, right.
Like you talk about wanting people to come along. For me, I've had people say to me, Tavara, your expectations of people is just too high.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, but you should be able to you should be able to do this. And I realized for some people, like, it made them very kind of like almost like afraid or a little standoffish. And someone literally said to me a couple months ago, was like, listen, you have these high expectations of people. And I was like, because I really want people to do well. Like, I really want, but like you say, so what I began to do now is meet people where they're at.
Oh, yes.
Well, now if I see your willingness to want to go, then I'll take you.
Yes, yes.
But if I see that you're hesitant or resistant, I will say, okay, you're not ready yet.
Right. That's
because at the same time, you still want to be able to maintain the relationship. And then you don't want people to feel, some sort of way that, because I believe, even to a certain extent, that could cause people to develop insecurities as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so I've learned to really meet people where they're at.
Yes.
And I always say to them, listen, if you want to go, I'm going to take you. But if you don't want to go, I'm okay with that. But I need you to be okay with the fact that I'm okay with that, even though I'm someone who could have high expectations of people.
Exactly. Because what it speaks to? It speaks to that outer area that they talk, that intrinsic motivator. So you're motivated intrinsically, but understanding everybody is not intrinsically motivated. So we have to, they may be, but it may not be at the level that you are or that I am for certain things. So it's like we have to meet them where they are, and then and then move from there, move accordingly. So,
you create the little steps, but then also, like I said, I just meet them where they're at. But I'm always clear in letting them know, listen, at any given time, if you feel like you're ready, let me know, and I will take it.
Okay. That's good. I love that. That's very good. Good stuff. So let me see where we are. We're doing great. We're about to close out, and we actually are way over. I usually do this in 30 minutes, but I knew this was going to go longer. So thank you for going a little over. But I've just had a great time talking to you. Now, Before I close out, I do want to give you an opportunity. I know you have, and I tried to catch your show today. Is it on Eastern time or is it Central time on Mondays?
Um,
Oh, it was
oh,
today.
it's Eastern, yeah.
That's how I missed it. Okay, so Dr. Tavara has a show as well on YouTube on Mondays at 12 o'clock Eastern time.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And she also, I was in her Emerging Leaders magazine. I think she had a new one that just came out. So just share with everybody a little bit about what you have coming up, going on, and all of those things. And then we'll wrap up and close out.
All right. So every Mondays at 12 noon, I do have what I call leadership moments. And so I just drop a lot of nuggets for managers to be able to utilize on their leadership journey. As you know, I'm very big on leadership. And so you could catch those on YouTube. Even if you miss it live, you're still able to go back to watch the replay under Tavara Johnson, or Dr. Tavara Johnson, and you'll be able to see it there. Also, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have a radio show called Emergence Radio Talk. And so that's on EB, or Envision Broadcasting Network. Also, I do leadership training as well as coaching for leaders. I do have something, or at least I do have the management toolbox for leaders, or at least new and aspiring managers. That's going to be kicked off this month, actually. And so that is where you have training. You have training once a month, as well as coaching once a month as well. And yes, I have that. I have the Emerging Leaders magazine as well. I have the Emerging Leaders book. So we did one early in part of the year, me and a few other my co-authors. The name of it is Emerging Leaders, Strategies to Navigate Your Leadership Journey. And so you could go ahead and pick that up on Amazon as well. And then I would just say, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, just to be able to see, what all I have going on, what all I have coming up. I wouldn't want you all to miss anything that I have going on. But if you want to, just go ahead and send me an email at info@tavarajohnson.com, or you can visit my website at tavarajohnson.com. I really look forward to connecting with all of you.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of your leadership wisdom as well. It is my pleasure having you as always. Well,
I had so much fun. Thank you so much. Anytime you want me to come back, just let me know.
I will do that. We might do something else. We'll see. Yeah, because this is a good conversation. Very good. So I'm going to go ahead and close out with you, and then close out with the audience. So thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. I'll see you. I do follow her. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't think I'm connected to you on Instagram, but we see each other. It's almost like she lives right next door to me, because I see her. Yes. We see each other. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So everybody, thank you guys so much for hanging with us today. This was a little longer, but this was such rich information. Remember, for LeaderShift, which is for new leaders, and for leaders who are seasoned, new to your organization, go to worldclasstraining.net/leadershift and sign up to talk to me, because we definitely want to make sure that we help you all. As Dr. Tavara was saying, relationships are so important, and the quicker you're able to establish relationships with your team members, the better you're able to get to productivity, and inherently people development takes place. So thank you again so much for joining us. Until next time, remember, when you're better, we are absolutely better. See you then.